We can be reality generators and self-fulfill our own prophecies that are positive in nature. And that's the beauty of it. When we get stuck in these cycles of negativity and feeling like everything I do, I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. Yeah, because you're a reality generator and that's what you're putting your energy and effort towards. So that's the result you're getting. You're saying you want a different result, but if that's where your focus is, then you're telling the universe, you're telling the world, you're telling yourself that that's actually what you want.
Yeah. Hi, and welcome to the Heart Leader podcast, where our heart and our mind align. I'm your host, Amber, and I am here with Austin as we dive into our journey of silencing our inner critic. We have been taking this journey together on the Heart Leader podcast as we share with you different pieces and parts of a book that we're writing by the same title, Silence Your Inner Critic. And if you haven't had an opportunity to explore what we're doing there yet, you can head over to that website, Silence Your Inner Critic, and see what we have up in that way. But for now, we're going to focus our discussion today all around how our inner critic can really get a hold of us and create self-fulfilling prophecies, how its language can start to tell us what it believes we're capable of and what we're not capable of, and really take us down a path where we start to believe it and maybe start to tailor our actions and even our behaviors based on what it says we can and cannot do. And then how that even begins to bleed into fears and our relationships and how we live our lives. So, Austin, when we talk about self fulfilling prophecies, what comes to your heart? Have you ever had a self fulfilling prophecy? Have you ever experienced getting into having that inner critic kind of get into your head and tell you what you can and can't do? And then suddenly it happens like right there because you listened to that inner voice?
Absolutely. Yeah. Multiple times throughout my life. In high school, for sure. You know, whether it was golf or attempting to talk to girls, those kind of things. A lot of inner critic going on in there. And honestly, like being on video. I know that was one thing you really helped me out with a ton. That was new for me prior to doing this podcast and I'd never really been on video that much. So I had a lot of inner critic going on to get used to being on camera and all that. So, yeah, I think we've all had that in some way, shape, or form where we're telling ourselves something that, before we even get started, it's just straight into it, all the negative, like, no, you're not going to be good at this. And, you're going to suck and it's going to look bad and people are going to make fun of you and you're going to be judged and all these things. And it's like, you haven't even made a first step to actually doing
Yeah.
it. And so I didn't realize that a lot of the things in my life where I was holding myself back because I was afraid I was going to be judged. Um, and a lot of them ended up being things that I enjoyed. It could be like snowboarding, for example, or um, golf in and of itself. I was playing other sports before I got into golf, and um, I being on video, I feel a lot more comfortable now. I still probably awkward here and there, but
But aren't we all?
but where aren't we all,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, it's when you start kind of getting into it and allow yourself the time to practice, then you can allow those thoughts to kind of start to fade away.
Yeah. And since it's something that I would offer most of us, if not all of us, have probably done at some time or another, we might not all be aware that we're doing it, is the thing. And so it could be one of those things that are running on autopilot. And I know in a previous episode, you talked about how we're all our own reality generators, right?
Mm.
And so here we are. If this is running on autopilot and we've got the inner critic going, I don't know, you'll never be good at that. if you do that and you fail, everyone will see you fail at it, and everyone. I'll use public speaking because this was one that I know I really struggled with, and now look what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's the number one fear of people, right? Isn't that the
Yeah,
case? Like even more than death?
yes,
Yeah, it's crazy.
very crazy. And so here I was like scared to death to be up in front of people public speaking. And so when it was a course I had to take in college, I very nearly had a panic attack. And I had to battle. Like it was really like I talk about it as a superhero, kind of super villain face off in the book quite a lot because that's what it felt like to me. You know, here's this super villain attempting to steal my power from within me because I hadn't really feared any other class I'd had up until that point. And then I hit public speaking and I'm like, crippling fear. What am I going to do? All of my classmates are going to judge me. And, you know, in college, that's a big deal. You think you want to be liked
Mhm.
in high school, you get into college and you don't want to be the one who everybody is talking about when they go out the next or that night or the next time everybody is getting together because you bombed. And so I felt like I was just trapped in this epic inner battle, hearing, oh my gosh, you're going to fail. You have no idea how to speak in public. It doesn't matter how many things you've done to prepare. You're going to get up there. You should just drop this class now. Put it off as long as you can.
Mm,
Put it off. Just put it off. Why? Why do you think you can do this? And so that fear of rejection, fear of judgment, it's like this kind of yin yang thing that goes on. And so we have to be able to recognize when that starts to happen and then shoves us into that comfort zone of, oh, yeah, you're right, inner critic, you're right. If I just drop this class, then I won't have to face that. I won't have to worry. I can just put it off until next term. But then I would have missed this amazing opportunity to realize something I really enjoy doing. And let me tell you, I did suck. The first one, I was so bad. But all of my friends actually rallied around me.
mm,
They didn't judge me because we all sucked.
yeah.
And so we all decided to help each other. And our instructor, our teacher, was phenomenal and gave us all pointers about things that we could do in order to become better. And so then you get to feel yourself be lifted up. And the moment that happens, the inner critic takes a punch and it starts to go, huh, well, I didn't see that coming. And it has to find another way to come at you. But at least now you know, wait a second, this is a way that I can come at my inner critic with my inner champion
Mm,
instead of letting my inner critic constantly come at me.
yeah. I like that. And I think it's also interesting, as you brought up the reality generator that we talked about last time. When we take a step back and you get that 30,000 foot view, of ourselves, which is hard to do, especially when we're deep into the inner critic. But if we do allow ourselves to take that time, we recognize that self-fulfilling prophecy is us being a reality generator in and of itself, right? And it's easy to say self-fulfilling. I guess it's not easy to say. uh, it is easy to say that a solid. Oh, that's great. Self-fulfilling prophecy. There we go. Is is negative. That's kind of where our minds go to, right? When we hear self-fulfilling prophecy, I gotta write this down. Is that it's negative, and so, but the amazing thing is that it can be very positive. We can be reality generators and self-fulfill our own prophecies that are positive in nature and things that will actually pull us up and lift us up and have us experience exactly what we want to experience in life. And that's the beauty of it. And so when we get stuck in these cycles of negativity and feeling like, man, I'm just, everything I do, I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. It's like, well, yeah, because you're a reality generator and that's what you're putting your energy and effort towards. So that's the result you're getting. You're saying you want a different result, but if that's where your focus is, then you're telling the universe, you're telling the world, you're telling yourself that that's actually what you want. And so that's a weird one to get around, right? And you have to kind of wrap your mind around it, pull yourself out and say, okay, no, uh, what is it that I truly desire?
Yes. Where your thoughts go, so do your actions, so does your focus, so does your energy, and so ultimately, so does your experience,
Yeah.
right? And so that, in essence, is what a self fulfilling prophecy is.
Yeah.
And if you desire a different experience in life, then you have to redirect your thoughts. You have to redirect your focus, your energy. And so that is how you create a different life experience. Uh, Inner critic is not going to enjoy you shifting yourself toward a positive experience because that's death to the inner critic.
Mm.
You're pulling your power back from your inner critic. You're silencing it and showing that it doesn't have direction over you. And that is the goal of what we're doing here together because we do not need to live a life that has us trapped in our comfort zone,
Mm.
right? We're not growing in a place of comfort. And I always think about when I was studying the Eastern spiritual paths, they would talk often about how seeds turn into plants or trees or any of those. It isn't comfortable to break out, for a seedling to break out of a seed and push its way through the soil to reach up and become a flower or any tree or plant. It is a painful process of growth. It could stay contained in its little seed, but that's not growth.
Mm.
And so, if we desire to bloom, if we desire to become the potential that we are,
Yeah.
we have to be willing to say, I desire to find out the full essence of my potential and break free and push out through the soil, through our inner being, and find out exactly what we're capable of.
It's a beautiful analogy. And that's, yeah, I mean, just like a seed. I mean, it's that first push. It's dark, just like it's dark in the soil, right? And so it takes a while until we start to see light. And once we see the light, then it's like, oh, okay, we know where to grow. And so I love that, and that definitely, especially when you're undertaking something for the first time, it feels dark. It feels like, and that's why we have those kind of dark thoughts. And so if we can kind of break through, as you're saying, I feel like that's a beautiful approach. And I think one of the byproducts of that is that we tend to hold ourselves back from things that we may really enjoy. And so I feel like that's kind of like a sad byproduct of the self-fulfilling prophecy when we get caught in that cycle. And we're like, there's things that I definitely have done in my past where I was like, I never even wanted to start, like music or guitar or anything like that. Like it was like I'm not going to be good. Like there's no way I'm going to be as good as all these amazing musicians. Like, but then I just kind of started, and I actually was like, whoa, I really like this. Like this is a lot of fun. I love to sing. I like to write. I love all these things. So I opened up a whole new uh, world to myself that I wouldn't have ever started or gone down if I stopped listening, if I kept listening to myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important thing to think about when just in terms of like being willing to go through that darkness and find the light, and you can do that through your own inner champion, as you say.
And when you found music, it was in a dark time in your life,
It's true.
in full transparency.
Right.
And so you could have stayed very held captive
Yeah.
in that place that you were in. But being willing to break through and say, hey, I've got this time right now to myself. And I don't know if you're willing to share what happened,
Yeah.
but it would have been very easy for you to just lay in self-pity, right?
Yeah.
And that's something, again, that inner critic loves to feed on. And it's why since we've mentioned that we love superhero movies, and it's why my brain immediately goes there, use whatever analogy or metaphor fits for you. But it's like, ha ha, you're weak right now. Let me climb in there and take advantage of your weakness. But you were like, ha ha, I may look weak right now, but I am not. And you gained enough strength to find something to hold on to. So, are you willing to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and you're right. I mean, I guess the inner critic does feed off that, like nom nom pity party,
Uh
you know,
huh.
pull pull into that, and so and that's where I was. So I was spent my whole life playing golf, and my goal was to be a professional golfer, and everything I was doing was on track to do that. And my junior year of college, I ended up having a herniated disc explosion to my neck, one of my back, three cracked ribs, vertigo, and psoas. So basically, my body shut down, and I was told I'd never play golf again. And so the very thing that I, at the time, tied my whole identity around was just, it was like the whole rug was taken right under me, and I just fell flat. And so, yeah, the first couple of days were really, really rough.
And
Uh,
literally, you fell flat. It
yeah,
wasn't just
yeah, yeah,
figuratively, like
it's
your
true.
body just went.
Just, yeah, shut down. And so, yeah, it was more than a couple of days. First couple of weeks, I was really just in a lot of pain. I was kind of stuck, and I couldn't really move that much. So I just was kind of bedridden. I was like, what am I going to do here? And after watching all four seasons of Lost, like in the first 2 weeks, like I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a long adventure here. I gotta I gotta figure something out. And at that point, I was kind of like, everything was just taken away from me. Like, what do I have to lose? Why not? Like, if I get into music, like, yeah, it took a little bit to get through. Like, why even start? Because it's not like I'm gonna go anywhere with it, and everyone else is so good. And I just everything that I spent my life doing, um, to actually get good at something, because that was my barometer, right? It was like I had to spend a lifetime, at least to me at that point, being 21. I was like, hey, I'm spending pretty much 20 years to be really good at something. You know, how do I how do I even why would I even start down this path? Like that was my thought process, right? But I never and then when it was like, what do I have to lose? Like I can just play music, and I don't it doesn't have to be for anyone. It doesn't even have to be good. It can be bad. Like, I could just mess around and just have fun. And it was like when I actually had that understanding, and it wasn't, I got rid of all the judgment, all the fear, and I just kind of like, oh, why not just play? Like that's what you play music, right? So let's play. And so I just kind of started with that, and it was really fun. And I'm by no means a Grammy winning artist by no, not even close. But it's like it's just something fun. It's something to express yourself with. It's something to enjoy. And it's like, okay, if someone likes it, great. If someone doesn't, great. Like it was expressive for me, and it turned out to be an amazing experience. I got to meet some incredible, incredible people that are still a big part of my life right now, whom I love. And so it's just that to me is more joyful than anything I could actually produce as music. So that's if I had stuck in that cycle of the pity party and kept feeding the inner critic, then I would have missed out on a whole side of myself and a whole world of people that, again, have made a huge impact on my life.
And from what I observed, I didn't know you right when you were doing all of the music, but I met you not that long after.
Mhm.
And that gave you then the strength to move forward with other parts of healing.
Yeah.
And when we talk about that self fulfilling prophecy, there are two very distinct paths that you could have chosen to go down, right? Using you as the example here. You could have chosen to lie in bed the whole time, focus on how much pain you were in, how you'll never golf again. Listen to the inner critic that was flowing in your mind. And we had had these conversations about where the mind went and where it could continue to go.
Yeah.
Or you could find another avenue of something that you enjoyed to help silence that inner critic. Because if you're doing something you enjoy, no matter whether somebody else enjoys listening to you do it or not,
Yeah.
you know, it was something that you enjoyed. And so that silenced that dialogue in your mind for a while. You found something you were passionate about and made you feel happy and redirected those thoughts, at least for a while. I'm certain I wasn't in your brain, but I'm estimating because I've had some experiences of my own that the thoughts would pop up in those quiet moments when you were laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep for the night, and the pain sets back in, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this my life again?
Mhm.
But you found a way to gradually move out of that. And that led you to the next step. And it led you to the next step, just like the seed growing up through the soil. It keeps leading you to the next step and the next step. So you're not looking at, oh, I need to go from the seed to being the mighty oak.
Mhm.
You went from, I'm going from being the seed to just getting out of the seed and knowing I'm moving through the darkness.
I like that. Right. And a big part of it, of how to silence the inner critic when that's occurring, I feel, whether that's through music or honestly any kind of art, is probably a great way to do that through expression. Because, like, I'm still really bad drawing, like, stick figures are my
Stick figures are
yeah,
the
it's really, yeah. And even then it's just like, I feel really bad. But it's like kind of funny. It's like, why not make fun of it in a good way, and like, embrace it. And through that process, I realized, wow, no matter what's going on in my life, I can kind of make fun of myself, and I can embrace that. And I don't have to be the best at everything. No one is. And so why would I even place that type of pressure on myself? Why would I even place perfection like that? And it doesn't even make sense. And so I feel like that's helped me heal in so many ways. So I can express my emotions. So I feel like through music or any kind of art, like, you can really express yourself, and then you're not letting the inner critic, it's a way to silence the inner critic just by expressing it, and letting it out, right? And so, and then even it could even be talking, and I feel like that's what you and I did so well when we first met. You helped me immensely just by talking it through, and then giving me the tools to say, okay, well, I'm willing to test anything at this point, because I've had the experience, and I'm willing to laugh at myself. I'm willing to get out of that cycle and into a self-fulfilling prophecy that's actually beneficial. My prophecy was that I wanted to be healed. What did it mean to be healed? It meant to be my very best self across all levels of who I am. So I could go, as a byproduct, I could go play golf. I could go just enjoy something new. And, as we got closer together, I could go on dates with you, and, and just be with the person that I love the most. So it's like, all of these things, it was a way to turn around that self-fulfilling prophecy from a negative into a positive, and start directing my life in the way that I desired to truly experience the very essence of who I am, and allow my soul to kind of breathe through and just learn and grow and expand.
And in order to do that, you needed to let go of fear,
Yeah,
fear of judgment, and fear of being rejected, and fear of it never happening.
right. Yeah, I'm still afraid of heights, but that's,
We
I'm
all
not. It's
have
not like
fears.
a full, across the
We
board
all have
thing.
fears.
And
But
spicy food,
but you're eating it.
but I love it. It's a love hate relationship.
Exactly. And so, again, it goes back to that kind of yin yang thing that we were talking about when the inner critic latches on. It's like it feeds off of one another. The inner critic feeds the fears,
Mhm.
and the fears feeds the inner critic. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth. But when we create the whole self fulfilling prophecy of what we desire in our life and we target it toward that positive, and we start reprogramming ourselves even in small steps, getting to that neutral point first, then directing it more toward the positive and creating self-fulfilling prophecies more toward the positive, then love becomes that yin yang approach. It is, I see all the love and all of the abundance and all of the joy in my life. And that feeds all of these positives and all of these beautiful thoughts and all of this gratitude that I have for my life, and all of this positivity and all of this gratitude that I have in my life then fuels all of this love. And so it starts a whole other side of the fence, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this over here, which will continue. You can get to a net neutral point, and then you can get over here
Mhm.
and start in this flow. And that's what we're talking about in all of these tools and all of these things that we have coming up, now that we understand the baseline of how the inner critic can get in there and just really mess with us. And it isn't as though we are helpless or hopeless, because we're not. We can begin to make these moves just like you did, and just like we all can do. But how does that fear of rejection and fear of judgment and just fear of all things that feed into self fulfilling prophecies hold us back when we begin to take those steps forward and like shove us back into that comfort zone? Because that's what tends to happen is we make this determination and we're like, nope, no longer am I going to be held back by my own self beliefs and self fulfilling prophecies we're talking about here. I recognize now that I'm the one holding myself back because I'm listening to this voice in my head telling me what my limits are. It's not even about someone outside of me holding me back. I'm holding myself back. So I'm going to redirect and I'm going to do it. So I'll use myself with public speaking. All right, I completed this public speaking class. Look at me. I can do this now. And then I go out and I have to speak in front of a group at work for the first time.
Oh,
Uh,
deer in the headlights. Yeah.
yeah, because it's not the same comfort zone, right? I had developed a comfort with my classmates. I had developed a knowing that it was a safe space. I don't have that same comfort in this new environment.
Mm.
I don't have the same sense of safety that if I mess up, everyone will be okay with it. Actually, it's the opposite. I feel in danger.
Mm.
And here we are. We talked about that, right? The moment I sense danger, I desire to flee
Yeah.
and go back into my comfort zone. That's what most of us, if not all of us, do. Very few of us want to go running headfirst into danger.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, everything becomes a danger, even if it's not. Nobody in that space was going to kill me.
Mhm.
Nobody was going to cause me bodily harm. But that fear of rejection in a social circle was so strong. It was so real and so visceral. And my inner critic was going, just because you could speak in class doesn't mean you can speak here.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter that you know this material inside and out. What's going to happen when you get up there?
Mhm.
I bet there are people who know it better than you out there.
Mhm.
And so, how do you kind of halt that and go, okay, I can still move through this knowing that I don't have to run back to comfort. This is my opportunity to continue to progress, to continue to move forward, and to show what I'm capable of in a new environment.
It's, it's beautiful. Mm. Rejection is so hard because it is something that we immensely fear. And it wasn't until I got that understanding. I forget who. I would be happy to give credit. I don't remember who shared it with me, um, or how I even kind of how it came into my awareness. But it wasn't until I recognized that when it comes to rejection, the best way to get through rejection is realize that even if you do get rejected, you're just in the same place that you started. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, then the only real difference is that one, you don't have any learning or any growth, and the other you do. So where do I want to be? Do I want to be in the same place with no information? Do I want to be in the same place with information? It was like just that little trigger, that little awareness. It's like, yeah, so what do I have to lose if I get rejected, whether that's talking to someone or whether that's in business or starting something new or doesn't anything like that, anything that we're talking about. If we place that expectation that we're just going to be the best right out of the gate, then we're only going to fail ourselves. So shifting that expectation and then allowing ourselves to just like into one of like, hey, whatever I do, I'm just going to learn, and that's what's going to help me. So if I do get rejected, then that's a data point to allow me to learn and grow and make an adjustment. And sometimes you might find that just by getting rejected, you might get somewhere a lot faster than if you, well, clearly, if you didn't start at all. Because, it's like, you could have all these plans like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And then you're like, oh, I don't even want to get started because I'm afraid of it. But if you just start and you allow yourself that rejection, you allow yourself that information, you might even get there faster than you ever could have imagined. So,
And that's pretty much what I did.
yeah,
I had to shift my perspective, that flipping the script
yeah.
that we talk about, to say, this is no different than my class.
Mm,
It's just a new set of students, really, because we're all students of life.
mm, nice.
And so when I get out there and I share what I know and I share my views on this material, the feedback that I will get from all of my peers will assist me in getting better. And so it is exactly the same as my class. It's just a new set of classmates. And so it isn't different. It's just a new environment.
Right.
And that helped me understand that I've already done it. And if I've already been successful in this once, then it isn't like I have to start over.
Mm,
It is a comfort zone.
mhm.
It's just a different environment.
I love that. Yeah. And I think it's another point about what you're saying is when you started, then your friends kind of started to rally around you. And I think that's actually something that we miss when we're looking at that. Like, I think we'd be surprised how many people actually want to champion for us because they also understand how scary it is. They're feeling the same, most chances is they're feeling a lot of the same fears you are. And so you might be that inspiration for them that they really needed. And so they'll actually want to help you out, which is a beautiful thing. And so I think that's one really key aspect is that you might be surprised how many people either A, support you, or B, just don't even think about you. So it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of more or less like 80% of it's going to be one or the other. And you might get judged here and there, but ultimately, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you might be surprised how many people might come up to you and be like, oh my gosh, like, you might think you did poorly, but someone might come up and be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, they might not say anything about what you did other than just, man, I could never do what you just did, which in many ways is such an incredible compliment. And so even if that's all it was, like again, you weren't meant to be the best, public speaker or the best at anything that you're doing ever. It's not going to happen the first time. I don't know if anyone's ever been the very best at something the very first time, just maybe even the first 10 times. So, it's just when we can just let go of that and allow for that growth, and we can really begin to see ourselves, because ultimately it's not about a rejection. I feel if we take it even further, take that next step, it's not about a rejection of anyone else. It's almost like a rejection of ourselves. And I think that's something that we miss through the process as well. It's like by not choosing to move forward, we're rejecting who we think we can be. We're rejecting our potential. And instead of rejecting it, let's unlock it. Let's let's grow in that. Let's see who we are, the grandest vision of the greatest version of who we can be.
And one of the things I love to do with my clients is say, okay, so let's break it down.
Yeah.
Say you do get rejected.
Yeah.
And I do this for myself all the time too. What is the worst thing that could happen if we get rejected or we get judged in a scenario? Play out your worst case scenario. If that were to occur, does it actually change your day to day?
Mhm.
Those are the things that begin to steal the thunder right out from the inner critic.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we're fearing the unknown. And when it becomes known, then we're like, yeah, why do I care?
Mhm.
Because being rejected, even if my whole group at work had rejected me after that,
Mhm.
it wouldn't have changed anything. I would have still had my job.
Mhm.
I would have still continued at the capacity. I would have gotten feedback on how I needed to improve.
Mhm.
And I would have had that data, as you said, that information for what I needed to do. But would it have changed my life after that point in any major way? No, I would have just continued on with having that under my belt and being able to move forward. That isn't what happened ultimately, but I could play out that worst case scenario. If I had this huge fear that I was going to bomb, that I got up there and I froze. Okay, so let's play that out. I get up there and I freeze. What is most likely to happen? My boss would have walked up, taken over, and taken care of it for me. And I would have had to do it again in the future. Again, would that change my life significantly?
Yeah.
Likely no. I would have been embarrassed for a few days,
Mhm.
and then I would have rallied and come back. So when we're willing to take the fear of the unknown and play that worst possible outcome out to see that even that is generally, now not always,
Yeah.
but generally not as bad as we hype it up to be, then we're the ones pulling the rug out from underneath our inner critic.
Yeah. It's such a good point. I love that. And I think you really describing stealing the thunder like that, and kind of to tie that back to where you started in this conversation in terms of empowerment. right? Like there's going to be empowerment one way or the other. So we can either empower our inner critic by feeding it and giving away our power, or we can pull that power within and empower ourselves. And I think that's another thing that's just kind of a misunderstanding around it. And so when you can empower yourself, it's just what a great way to what a great way to learn. I mean, talk about it fueling you. I mean, that's that self-esteem that we were talking about. That's your well-being. That's you getting to experience you, which is what else are we here for? We're not here like, I mean, yeah, it's fun to experience other things, but ultimately from a non-egoic place, I mean, we're here to experience ourselves, right? If our goal is to be patient, right? Like we're not like lifted like here's a little fairy dust of patience and then it's like, oh yeah, I'm patient. It's like, no, we're here to experience ourselves being patient. So opportunities come up and we then can choose whether we're patient or not. Sometimes it's really hard when we're driving and people aren't driving well and you're like, just okay, be patient. You know, but it's not fairy dust, it's action. And so if through this process we can silence our inner critic and we can empower ourselves into something that maybe is uncomfortable, then we can experience ourselves in a way that we never thought possible. That's life. That's what it means to live. That's exciting.
Yeah. And when we pull that power back
Mhm.
and we understand worst possible outcomes, we can actually plan for contingencies should they ever happen, right?
Yeah.
Then they're off of our mind too. We're like, oh, okay, if that were to happen, I know what I would do in that scenario.
Mhm.
Again, talk about pulling the thunder back,
Yeah.
you know? Um, for those who are superhero people like us, you become Thor, right? And you just feel so empowered. It's like, I know what I would do in that situation. I'm good. But now I can create my own self fulfilling prophecy where that's not even an option because now my thoughts aren't going to go that direction.
Mhm.
Now my focus isn't going to go that direction because I'm not even thinking about that anymore. I have a plan. I'm good. I'm not concerned about it.
Mhm.
And now I'm focused on just nailing it.
Mhm.
I've got this. I'm good. And that is such a strong place to come at life from because we can't pretend that things aren't going to happen.
Sure.
That that level of just not looking at life, it can create situations where, of course, we stumble and we fall. But if we have plans in place where we're ready, should we stumble, it may keep us from falling. And then that just makes us feel stronger.
Right. It's beautifully said.
So, well, I appreciate you sharing your story.
Oh, of course. Right back at you.
So it really helps when we can talk about it. And even our community, if individuals have stories that they can share, I think it really helps us learn from one another because those are real moments where things could go one direction or they could go the other direction. And honestly, it's equally as powerful when we choose the other direction as well. And we're sitting in that place and we don't know how to navigate out of it because that's where we as a community can come and rally around one another the same way my classmates came and rallied around me, right? That's why we have this community at Suivera where we can all be there for each other. So I really feel all stories are powerful.
I agree. It helps us like feel like we're not alone because it's easy in this really big world where you see, especially on social media, you see a lot of people, succeeding or doing the very thing that you're afraid of doing, or, you're just like, man, how is everyone else doing it? Why am I not? why am I the only one not? Why am I feeling this way? And so it's really, really easy to feel that when that's what the whole world is kind of projecting at you. So when we can have a community like we do here at Sweet Vera and just recognize that, you know, it's not just on an individual base, but on a collective base, that we're here through love to help each other out and to share in story, in connection, in purpose, intention, and love, that we can all grow together and we're stronger together. And so the more that someone is willing to grow and share through their process of growing, then we all lift up. It's the rising tide thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, life isn't easy.
No, no.
And when that inner critic like just lives and thrives off of the fact that life isn't easy, it just makes it even harder. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
Thank you, my love.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Heart Leader podcast, where our heart and our mind align. Again, we are focusing these next several weeks on silencing our inner critic. This is a result of a book that we are writing by the same title, Silence Your Inner Critic. And you can take a moment and sign up to get a discount once the book is released. If you head on over to silenceyourinnercritic.com, you'll get 20% off, and you'll actually get a copy of a workshop that we have that is one of our most popular ones to help you along your journey to silencing your inner critic. It is our mirror technique workshop, and it really helps to see yourself with really loving eyes. So, wherever you are, we'll make certain that it is posted below. And is there anything else that you feel we should share?
Just we appreciate all your support. I know it may seem like a little thing, but every like, every click to subscribe makes a huge difference for us. And it's just incredible. And just your support, your love, your care. Every time you subscribe or like what we're doing, it just propels us forward and allows us to keep helping more people in growing our community. So you know, if you feel moved and you love what we're talking about, please subscribe. We'd love you to join our family and connect with you, and comment below and share, and let's all keep this amazing, amazing energy of love and keep fueling this planet with that love.
Awesome. Yes, so please, wherever you are, you can click subscribe, and that does help us know that we're creating content that you like. Until next time, I am your host, Amber, and I'm here with Austin, and we look forward to hearing from you down below.